It is time for another round of Porterverse lore ramblings. Suppose I should get a new episode out by now. It's been a while since the last one. So without further ado, let's get into it. Number 1. Thomas the Tang engine had an auxiliary tender from 1920 to 1955. This auxiliary tender was used exclusively on freight services on his branch line. Normally the freight trains will be double-headed in the pre-grouping days. But around 1920 or so, Thomas was the only one left running the branch line. Any extra coal and water was needed for the services. The auxiliary tender will remain in branch line service until 1955, when Percy was relocated to the Farquhar branch line to help with freight services. Nowadays, the auxiliary tender is used for when Thomas does mainline local trains and international tours. Number 2. Engine number 1401, famously seen in the movie The Titfield Thunderbolt, is sentient and is Oliver's brother. 1401 is a bit of a celebrity and thinks very highly of himself, which annoys the living shit out of Oliver, of course, whenever he visits Sodor. They often argue about which one deserves more fame, as Oliver thinks he deserves it more as he was in the Railway series, and that his TV series episodes are very popular amongst fans. While on the other hand, 1401 thinks he deserves the fame as he started a quote-unquote big British blockbuster event that rocked the movie industry in 1953. In his words, of course. And Duck finds the entire feud stupid, and usually tells them both to stop being idiots about it. But at the end of the day, they all still care about each other. And usually pretty chill most of the time. Emphasis on most of the time. Number 3. Lady does exist. Technically. She's a 224 built by a private engineer living in Great Warington. The engineer in question had an agreement with the Sodor Tramway to allow the engine, named Lady of the Hills, to run on the line occasionally, even help with the odd train here and there. This deal would come to an end when the Sodor Tramway closed its operations in Great Warington, and while the company was sold to the Knapford and Olmsted Railway. The Lady of the Hills would remain in the shed at Great Warington for the next few decades, while the engineer actively looked for a new home for her. He would never find one. The Lady of the Hills was passed on to the engineer's daughter, and later on her son eventually, both of whom will maintain the engine in operation condition just in case some hope came across. The hope would finally come through in 1980, when the Olmsted Castle Rail was expanding the Great Warington with plans to revive the town. Lady of the Hills was uncovered by the railway, and Sir Robert offered to restore the engine for the family. The family agreed, and Lady of the Hills was restored to working order by 1986. She is still owned by the family. However, the Olmsted Castle Railway carries out the maintenance and overhauls. If you're wondering, where does the Magic Rail come into play? Well, it does here. In the late 90s, during the production of Thomas and the Magic Railroad, or known as in the universe as Misconducted the Magic Railroad, they asked if Lady of the Hills could be used in the movie. And the family actually rejected this request as they read the script and thought it was a stupid idea. And thus, they had to change the character in the movie. The character in the movie was now named just Lady, and was a Tang engine now. However, she still had a fairly similar livery to the real-life Lady of the Hills. And that is how Lady exists in the Porterverse, known as Lady of the Hills. Number 4. Sir Tom Hatt I was an avid fan of the Great Central Railway Robinson and Atlantics. He was understandably interested in buying one as a result, but could never afford it. He would pass away in 1956 without ever owning one. The years would go on, and the whispers of Tom's interest in owning a Robinson and Atlantic would circulate every so often. Eventually, in 1989, to commemorate Sir Tom Hatt I's centenary, the Northwestern Railway unveiled a new build of the Robinson Atlantic painted up in Northwestern Blue, which is Tom Hatt's favorite color, christened with the name Topper Hi-Hat in his honor. The engine was used exclusively on tours, and only ever does service work in absolute emergencies, which are very rare. Topper Hi-Hat often does tours on the mainland England, and even in the Isle of Man. And yes, Topper Hi-Hat is still around today. Number 5. Remember Warington, the austerity Tang engine that Tom bought after Woodward's visit? Well, you probably remember that I said he was painted Northwestern Blue and had the Lambton cab and gear injector, right? Well, we're gonna change that a bit. he is now painted in Northwestern green. I feel this fits him a lot better as he is the NAFR pilot, and the Porterverse goods engines and shunting engines generally wear Northwestern green. So yeah. Warington still has the landing cab and the gear ejector too, just wears Northwestern green now. Number 6. The events of the magazine story, The Naughty Pink Truck, takes place in 1999. You see, Tom had the truck painted bright pink as a punishment. Funny thing was that the truck was like, "Joke's on you, I'm into that shit," and embraced the pink livery. And the truck being painted in this pink color actually caused him to become a bit of a local celebrity. And thus, the trunk remains in pink to this very day. Number 7. Thomas finds the idea of having a sloped running board disgusting. His running board was always flat straight across in the Porterverse. It was caught a bit off guard when he saw the railway series racing himself, depicting him with a sloped running board. A lot of fans in recent years ask him why he doesn't have the sloped running board like the TV series or the books. And that usually annoys Thomas quite a bit. But he knows better than to curse anyone out over it. His reaction is generally more grinding his teeth while explaining kind of way. But yeah. Thank you all very much for watching this episode of Porterverse Lore Ramblings, and I shall see you all same time next week.